welcome into our virtual town hall. This is in replacement of what we were supposed to have on Thursday, but due to weather, we canceled to keep everybody safe. That's our first priority. So we are excited today to have County Manager Alan Cook, our VRC Director, the Volunteer Resource Center, Stephanie, I always say Chang, Stephanie Pittman. And then we have three wonderful gentlemen from NCDOT, Gabe, David, and Jason. So we know they are busy. Well, we're all busy, but definitely getting out and about. So we're going to let them start and kind of, I think, to kick things off, just a generic update with where NCDOT is currently in Mitchell County.
Well, that's a loaded question, but we're actively working in throughout the county. We've got, we got pipes being replaced this week on NC 197 and Mine Creek Road, which those will be some closures there. So, and we've actively got Solnell walls being built in the county currently on. Well, I guess let me back up just a minute on those closures so I give some better context. So NC 197 will be closed on Tuesday, so tomorrow, from roughly about 8:30 till probably 3:30, replacing a pipe out there and doing some work there just above the railroad tracks at Huntdale. And then we'll be doing some work on out towards the boat landing as well, but that won't be an actual closure. It'll just be some pipe replacement stuff going on. Wednesday night, February 26th, we will have a pipe replacement going on Mine Creek there, kind of between NC 80 and 226 there. I believe the address is 222 Mine Creek Road. We've got a pipe there that we're going to have to replace. We're going to do that at night. We'll start closing the road about 6 p.m. and should have it open in the morning, roughly about before 6 a.m. But we've got work going on throughout the county. Like I said before, we've got a Solnell wall that's actively going on on Snow Creek Road. That's why the road's closed, is there's just not enough room in there for everyone to work. We've got Solnell walls that are upcoming fairly quickly on McKinney Cove Road, as well as some work that's got to be completed on NC 226. There in the Loafers Glory area, heading towards Red Hill. We also have some other retaining walls being actively being built with some bridge repair work on Crabtree, and then we will have a couple more going on. One going on Minnie Lane, as well as a bag wall that will be built along McKinney Cove in the future. And potentially another bag wall, another retaining wall on Harrell Hill. So we've got a lot of work going on throughout the county.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of closures, they have been coming down kind of through Allen and then emergency management, and then we're putting them out to our local media, Facebook, and then WTOE in the paper. Are there any other places people should kind of get ahead, or what we're doing is where they need to be looking?
I think that's probably the best place to look and go. I mean, we're actively putting changeable message boards up as well to try to give people that forewarning and let them know. And we're notifying the schools and such as well. So that, I believe, really what you're doing has really been effective, and we certainly appreciate it. So.
And last question, this is kind of probably like, oh, don't even want to think about it yet because you're still so focused on everything that happened during Helene. But there's been notice of secondary issues coming, like it wasn't directly storm related, but maybe some things are failing now, or because it's getting this part of the road's being used more. Now there's other issues starting. So how are you guys handling these kind of secondary issues post the hurricane?
Well, I mean, all you can really do is handle them as they come. So, the increased truck traffic due to railroad repairs, as well as even some of our repairs, is obviously taking a toll on some roads, and we're working to patch those roads and overlay them as we can, as weather allows during the winter, to try to keep those roads together and in a way that's, safe for the traveling public. In terms of, slides and other issues related to rainfall and cold weather, you address them as you find them. Is really really how you kind of have to handle it. So that's really how we've been going about it. So
It's just like the list keeps getting bigger and bigger, but we appreciate you. You are definitely seen, and we are very thankful for all the efforts that you're making here in our county, not only here, but all of Western North Carolina. And you guys
thank
are
you.
welcome to
Uh,
jump off unless you have more to that you would like to add or share to Mitchell County.
I will just add that we're, there are other areas still to work through and clean up. Obviously, a lot of what I mentioned are larger repairs. So I mean, there's still a lot of work left to do, and really we're going to have to kind of make a sweep through the county, and as we get better weather, and try to make sure we've addressed things that still need to be addressed. So it's actually finding more and more, but it's our efforts aren't secluded to what we mentioned earlier. So
Right. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
thank you.
All right, Stephanie, we'll jump over to you really quick with some questions on the VRC. So I think generically speaking, for someone that has no idea what the VRC is, they haven't needed help, or their mindset is just now focusing on the VRC and needing help, because right after the storm, we were all about helping others. And now we are kind of focusing on ourselves and our properties and seeing what Helene has left us with. So tell us what the VRC is and what all you do.
So VRC stands for Volunteer Resource Center. And what we've been doing is coordinating with groups that are coming in wanting to provide assistance, whether it just be, church groups wanting to come in and volunteer, groups of students, whatever, and also taking residents' requests that need assistance on their properties. We try and sort through the volunteers, see what their skills are, if they have any special skill sets or equipment, and then pair those up and match those up with residents to make the most effective use of their volunteer time. As the months have gone on, we're seeing less like everyday volunteers and more, we're working more with volunteer organized groups. So we do have some volunteers that have started contacting us again around Christmas and the first of the year with that really cold weather. We saw a really big decrease in volunteers contacting us to come in and help, but we're picking back up with that. We've got groups scheduling volunteer times to come in coming into March and in with that warmer weather. So where we saw a decrease in that, we are having more of that come in. So hopefully we'll be able to get more assistance out to our volunteers or work to our volunteers and assistance for our residents. One of the other things that we're doing is coordinating with several volunteer organizations that have helped people get into campers. If your home was severely damaged or destroyed and you were placed in a camper, several other groups that had the resource for that temporary housing have shared their list with us. And we're working then to find out what the long-term housing picture looks like for those residents. Is it something where their home is salvageable and can be repaired? Or are they going to have a complete rebuild? And we have several organizations that are assisting with both of those areas. So we're just trying to clean that out so that we don't have multiple organizations contacting the same family, because it's overwhelming already if you're in that situation. So we're just trying to help fit those puzzle pieces together.
So kind of two parts. People call you residents call you if they see that they need something. It can be as little to having a couple limbs moved out of the yard to big scale projects. Those might just take a little bit more time to get the correct resource, correct?
Absolutely. Because if it's a bigger project, we have to find a group that has the skill set and knowledge, but then also the equipment to handle the job.
Okay. And then the second one, people call you, my church from Charlotte is coming to serve. We'd like to come in 3 weeks. What can we do? And then that way you can match everything. Okay, great.
Yes.
And let's talk about, you are here for the long term. And I think that's important to know, that you are kind of who the county supports. That you are an elbow off of the county that's kind of keeping everyone together, giving us a pulse on what's going on in the community. So talk about being here for the long term, and that there's no end in sight. And I say that in a positive way.
So, so the VRC opened, gosh, I guess it was early October. Yeah, so it's been an ever-changing project, but we're just trying to make the most of our resources that are available to us to benefit our residents. All of my staff in the VRC are all local residents. They're all volunteers. If a resident needs help, they can contact us on our hotline number. It's 828-660-0818. We're open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 to 3. Saturdays are 9 to 2. And for now, we operate out of the Mitchell County Senior Center. If you call after hours, you can leave us a voicemail and we'll call you back, or you can email us at volunteermitchell.org. But we are very much here in not not a short-term capacity, but very much looking for the long-term recovery. Our volunteer center, the information that we've captured so far will eventually be turned over to the Mitchell County Long-Term Resiliency Group, which is dedicated to the recovery and rebuilding of residents and businesses in Mitchell County.
Yeah, and before you go, I just think again, it's important that people hear why they should call you, and it's exactly what you said, the organization, because we don't know who's here if they're just coming. So if they come,
Exactly.
it's just like a check-in that we know, oh, someone's here that is bringing a load of gravel. Well, great, we can provide you with some areas that need it.
Yeah.
So, anything else you'd like to?
Well, I'll say one of the things that's important in the beginning, we had so many different volunteer groups that were here, and residents were reaching out to 3, 4, anybody that was offering assistance. A lot of residents, applied with anybody that was offering it, and that's fine. But as we move into more of this long-term stuff, we've seen a lot of duplication of efforts. We may send out a volunteer group to a site to assist a residents, and there's another group there, or stuff like that. So the groups that are still here, we're all pulling together to kind of relay information, because we don't want to waste their time or their resources. So we're just trying to be as effective as possible, and we get all kinds of phone calls with all kinds of questions. So if it's not an answer that we know right away, we're more than happy to get the answer and give you a call back.
And if I'm in the community and, there was always a need to kind of volunteer in the heat of things, you could find any distribution site, but this would be a great place for local churches to also get involved to help at the call center. Is that possible?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We can always take some staffing, extra staff volunteers in the call center. If you're a local group and want to do something in the community, we are scheduling several community work days. We'll be focusing on the Creek Walk in Bakersville for one of those days. We've hosted already down at the Ledger Fire Department, and kind of restocking the community wood stack they have back there behind the fire department. So if you're just wanting to help out in the community, contact us, and there's always ways to do that.
Perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Steph.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Alan Cook.
I tell you, we've had some good ones on there. I'm having to follow the DOT, and Gabe's been there from day one, and so is his team in that office over there, Jason, and the other gentleman has just been on it. And of course, Stephanie over here from day one, she was working with the shelter, and then she shifted over and started organizing our volunteers, and they've done a ton of work. I mean, that volunteer resource center quietly gets out in the community and helps folks, whether they're needing trees cleared out of the driveway for access to their water source may have gotten trees falling on it. They may just need some things like supplies, and I've just watched that volunteer resource center do really well. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and brag on her. Some of the other counties were kind of calling me and asking, hey, you got a really neat thing with your volunteer resource center. Can you give us some tips? And that makes me feel real good when the neighboring counties sometimes are say we're doing something right, and they're asking for tips. So I've been very happy with Stephanie and the team and the volunteers, and we got some that are here for the long-term build. Some of these volunteer groups are building houses for folks and repairing houses. And I hear that in March, there should be a lot more volunteers coming in. Some of them are working on their spring breaks. So I just can't say enough about what Stephanie's doing with the volunteer and the long-term disaster recovery group that's forming out of this. So it's really, really exciting watching that and just seeing it help our folks. All
Well,
right,
cool too.
me get there talking about that. I know you got questions.
I do. The community has burning questions. And so one of them, a lot of it is debris removal. However, the first one is long-term housing. So currently what is being done for long-term housing, and what's the county's kind of stake in it? How do we play a part in that?
Yes, great question. So, long-term housing plan is multifaceted. So if you look at the diverse damage that Helene did to the area, some houses were completely washed away and all there is a foundation. Other houses took major tree damage. Some houses had stabilization issues where the banks are caving in or landslides have knocked them off of their foundation. And so as we look at what insurance is doing with that house, some of them insurance isn't helping because it was a flood. Some of them insurance is doing a lot. Some of the tree issues, the insurance is coming in and they're helping make that housing repaired or rebuilt. If it's a total, the insurance is coming in on that. So it's a multifaceted approach on housing. But for that housing that is completely destroyed due to the flood, there's several things on there. Of course, we're telling everyone to apply for FEMA because it's not that you might say, well, I applied for FEMA and it's just jumping into the bureaucracy. And, there might be some legitimate gripes there, but you also are putting your name into the system that opens you up to other resources. So I had a person last week come in the office. They're having stabilization issues near their house. And I said, have you applied to FEMA? Well, I didn't think FEMA would help. And I said, well, FEMA is the place that a lot of other agencies go to see if the damage was assessed to be a FEMA. They use FEMA as a place to go to look for that data and those numbers. So therefore, we need your name in there as it pertains to your long-term housing. So if you had damage, go through that process. So what we're doing on rebuild, of course, we've got the insurance factor that comes into that. We have the FEMA factor that gives temporary housing. It also does transitional shelter. And if, FEMA gives you the max, it would be $42,500 towards your home on the FEMA claim related to the storm. But there is also a thing called disaster mitigation. So let's say you were in a floodplain. Let's just say your house was destroyed or damaged severely due to flooding. It may be worth your while to look into disaster mitigation. So what that would be is the FEMA through the state. So it's a FEMA reimbursed for the money, but the application goes through the state and it's called a mitigation grant. And if your house had major flood damage, maybe it was in a floodplain, if you qualify for the grant, they would give you pre-storm value for your home. Sometimes that's tax value, sometimes that's an appraised value, but they would find a value of what your place was worth prior to the storm and give you a payout. For example, let's say had a gentleman, his single wide trailer was washed away, just foundation left, and he was talking to the county. He said, when I'm looking to rebuild right back there, that's my only option. And I said, well, now have you thought about mitigation? And he didn't know about it. And actually that worked well for him because he wanted to move away from the place that endangered him from getting flooded again. He had a lot of anxiety about that, but he didn't know what to do. So in a minute, I'm going to talk to you about a phone number you can call as kind of a one-stop phone call to get referred to all of this, to where you get the referral to whether it's debris removal or whether it's mitigation. We can start talking that. So I always tell folks, if your house was damaged, especially with the flooding, if your business was damaged with the flooding, explore the mitigation. It could be an option for you. As far as the rebuild, I think in 2025, this year, a lot of people are rebuilding. There's a lot of building going on in Mitchell County, and like I said, though we got hit hard with the storm, though it knocked out about 111 homes had major damage. That 111, a lot of them are going to be rebuilt. Some houses won't go back if they were in a flood zone. The owner may opt not to go back. If they were over 50% damaged in a flood zone, they're going to have to lift that home out of the flood zone so it won't be flooded out easily. Now, some areas were flooded, and it was a 1,500-year flood event we went through. And in that case, they weren't in a set floodplain and they got flooded, and flood insurance didn't help them. Still reach out to us on that mitigation line. There might be some types of repairs and wet proofing that can be done. So we'll explore options with our folks on that as far as the housing rebuild goes. And of course, our volunteers have been out there doing a lot, taking on a lot of rebuilds through our churches and our nonprofits. Some of these projects are coming in and the churches will sponsor a house and they will rebuild it. And you're not running through the governmental side of it. You're running through the nonprofit side of it. And if you are, you had a house damaged and you need some help, this number I'm going to give you a little bit later, it's going to be the way to go to start getting that. And of course, when you call that number, I might be just sending you to Stephanie's number with the Volunteer Resource Center, because they got a few folks out there that are inquiring about, hey, what can we do on these rebuild projects? So we got several different things going on. That's multifaceted answer. So just to re-sum it up, of course, insurance is rebuilding. You have FEMA adding some assistance through the FEMA 42,500, which is rarely enough. But you also have the potential for mitigation, which gives you the pre-storm value of the home on a buyout. And then you have volunteer groups on the housing. So it's a multifaceted housing rebuild in Mitchell County.
And I think I remember one of the individuals from Texas that were here, they told us very early on in all the disasters they've done in Texas, it's always, every program has to be layered with another program to try to get either what your home's value was worth or the correct dollars you need to move forward. So that's why it is such a long process, because you've got to go through different programs. The last thing to talk about there before we move on to what the rest of the topic of conversation will be is debris removal. Is it safe to say, when we're talking about encouraging individuals to apply for FEMA, which the deadline to get that first application in is March 8th, is it safe to say that if we don't have a large amount apply for FEMA, that it could hinder us in the future with some maybe getting some dollars going in the county?
Yeah, so basically a lot of the damage assessments to the county are run through the FEMA data. So if you were damaged in this storm, and here's what I get, and I've got relatives, and even myself might have said it often, is, oh, I got damaged, but there's a lot of people worse off than me. And, we all feel that way, as in our heritage is, a heritage that says, hey, we're not going to try to grab all the resources. We want the people that need them most to have them. But in many cases, we hurt ourselves. And I got fine folks that, might have had half a roof hurt by a tree falling on it. And they're like, well, there's a lot of people worse off than me. They lost their house. Well, these are the folks I need to come in and do a FEMA claim. And, if your insurance covered that tree damage to the house, you can still put that FEMA claim in. And if there's a deductible involved, there's a potential, I can't talk on behalf of FEMA, but there's a potential they might get your deductible, or they'll get you $750, which, all right, personally, after, let's see, I put my FEMA claim in about mid-October, and just on a side note, so you all are watching, you can say, okay, I'm not the only one. I just got the $750 that was supposed to be the rapid response this past week. So but still go for your FEMA. You've got to put that on there and record that. So like I said, it's something that it's a bureaucracy, and sometimes the wheels move slow, but do it. It's going to help. It's a means to keep that damage assessment at the very least documented.
Perfect. Well, it does look like we're running out of time on this Zoom. So this will be part one. Part two will be all about debris removal. So we will close out here and just open that link back up and we'll start again.